Hello there, you know what time it is. I should have started this a bit earlier. Oh wait, but it's over here. Huh. No, I should have done this earlier, or not, because I was thinking, how about I try to react to make two videos reacting to this today. Then I procrastinated a bit. Well, better late than never. Anyway, now it's time to do episode 10. Now that Washington takes command. Let's do this now. I just want to check something. Okay, good. It's fully loaded now. Right. Sorry, let me just. Yep, that's the best one. Yeah. Yeah, everything seems to be working. Yeah. Good. Hopefully it gets a lot of views. Unlike this video, which will probably get like very few views.
Pending an idea. That idea is freedom.
Well, this seems like it will be a pretty good episode. Interesting. And I think one thing that worries me is, well, will I be able to, comment on much of it and all that?
July 1775. Dearest Mother, we are 10 days out of Philadelphia and should arrive in Boston any time now. General Washington is to take command of the Continental Army, and Dr. Franklin has assigned James and me to report on it. James...
Well, there we go. There's that opening explanation explaining what our characters are doing here. At least what James and Sarah are doing here. I don't know why Henri is here. Like, I mean, he's not gonna write anything. Why is he here? I know, man. What's he gonna do? Provide moral support or something? I don't know.
How do you know where these birds will go?
They're homing pigeons. The Gazette will get news from the war before...
Oh, I remember this plot point. Homing pigeons and all that. And, yeah, but, apparently, the homing pigeons won't, apparently the homing pigeons end up now going to Philadelphia because, I think he got, the wrong homing pigeons, or something, yeah. I don't know. I remember this being, a plot point. Now that I remember this detail.
Any other newspaper. Fly away home, little brother. The Gazette will get news from the war before any other newspaper. Fly away home, little brother. Here we are!
This is an army?
Yeah, this is why having good leadership is very important. These guys definitely are in desperate need of, proper management and all that. This is why, management is very important. And also, why, just, a lot of aspects of the modern world are, just not doing well. I mean, various governments, companies, and all that. I mean, I feel like the world, not just the United States, but the world in general is suffering from, just poor management, poor leadership. Like, everywhere you go, instead you're just being met with, just there's too many incompetent people in charge right now. That's a real big problem. I say that's probably the biggest problem with modern day society is that there's too many, people in charge are either, either just too evil, too greedy, too stupid, or just plain incompetent and all that. Well, we have a just management crisis, going on here. Well, we definitely need better people know that. Well, time for, this obligatory, Benjamin Franklin scene. After, we gotta have Walter Uncle 18 just show up in today's episode for some reason. Okay, it's part of the contract or something, I don't know.
General Washington takes command of colonial forces in Boston. The general has begun to impose discipline on the eager and patriotic but disorganized group of citizen soldiers facing General Howe's formidable British regulars.
I don't know how General Washington will turn this rabble into an army. A more sloppy, disrespectful, bull-headed group this journalist has never seen. But Dr. Franklin, this is supposed to be James's report from the front. What you read is not at all like what he said in his dispatch.
Editor's privilege. Besides, if the army is to become a...
So what did he say?
Dispatch.
Editor's privilege. Besides,
Editor's privilege.
if the army is to become a real army, they'll need money from Congress. And Congress won't give it if they think the army is hopeless.
I see. So that's what's going on here.
It was a brave thing to let the kids go along, but I can't help but worry about them.
They'll be fine, Moses. James has the makings of a fine reporter. And Sarah, well, if either of those boys gets out of line, Sarah will put them straight soon enough. Have you spotted any of James's pigeons yet?
I've seen plenty of pigeons, but none of them look like war correspondents.
I told him that the distance might be too great. Just as well he uses the Army gallopers as a precaution.
Perhaps I might be confusing humming pigeons of this episode with humming pigeons from a later episode or something. I don't know. I remember something happened with the humming pigeons.
General Washington has his work cut out for him. He has to strengthen the area around the
Cambridge, Massachusetts Bay.
entire city and somehow whip this bunch of farmers and layabouts into an army. Would you say that rations here are low?
I would say rations here are non-existent. We throw together whatever we can find.
I've heard that things will change now that General Washington is in charge.
I've heard there's an island in the south where dogs can talk and wear hats. You really work for a newspaper?
Yes, indeed. Dr. Benjamin Franklin's Pennsylvania Gazette.
Pennsylvania? What business is this of theirs?
Dr. Franklin says all the colonies have a common interest in this war.
That's so. Well, I'm just interested in yours truly and his part of this war, which will be over and done with in 52 days.
52? How can you be so sure of that?
That's when my enlistment is up. That's when most of these men will be on their way home.
What if the British are still in Boston?
They're welcome to it as far as I'm concerned. Look, laddie, I'm a storekeeper. Dry goods mostly, some fribbles for the ladies and such. I can't afford to let my business do for itself. And that there's Jeremiah Braddock. He's a farmer who's going to bring in his hay and sweet corn if he's stuck down here parading around for Mr. Washington.
I think I'm just gonna that whole chase scene out. I don't see what it adds. I consider it just I don't know.
Dearest Mother, James spends more and more time each day with General Washington's aides, trying to find out and report to Dr. Franklin the Army's plans.
Good. So we're going to, actually look on some good information here, hopefully.
Only as long as the name...
Dr. Franklin the Army's plans.
What's up with...
But...
Some of the parts in the background look a bit odd and all that, a bit out of place. I feel like the art style was completely different and all of that from from the show's art style, and that doesn't make too much sense in my opinion. Plus, it doesn't even look like it's trying to, copy like what actual portraits, looked like back in the day. It looks more like some modern, more modern, or like from the 20th century, that the painting in the background there. Oops.
I'm afraid we still don't know if the pigeons are getting through.
I thought Philadelphia was that way. Are you sure these aren't British pigeons?
So is right. The whole pigeon subplot is from this episode here. So it's possible. So yeah. Thankfully, he's not, getting any good information and all that. At least nothing that would be useful for the British.
We only have one doctor. Poor Dr. Marston, for the men here and over at the school. And he's not well himself.
Were these men wounded in the battle at Bunker Hill?
Yes, but most are just sick.
Yeah, not proper, camp building and stuff, not doing a good job in making sure that none of the waste, gets where it's not supposed to and all that, and that's not just improper, cleaning etiquette. Of course, then again, it's quite possible that it could be from diseases brought by mosquitoes and insects. Since let's see now. When this episode takes place towards the summer months. So yeah, there's bound to be some mosquitoes and all that. Okay, so there's also the thing about, food and all that, just since they're not getting a lot of good quality rations, or rations in general as well.
It's the fever that takes them mostly. We have no ice.
I wonder what devotion to duty or country would make men go through something like this.
We're fighting for our liberty, young lady. Simple as that.
If these New Englanders don't know how to drill yet, they certainly know how to dig.
Makes sense. After all, a lot of these people are just ordinary townsfolk and all that. Some of them are just blue collar workers and all that. Laborers. Some of them.
These hardy colonists know more about building than fighting. They never had an army, but they have carved a nation out of a wilderness.
Yep, these are true frontiersmen and all that. They're the type of they may not know how to, do good, but they know how to just, cut down a bunch of trees and build a nice, well-made cabin in the woods and all that. Some of them, also, some of them do. Many of them do know how to shoot guns and all that. At least the more frontiers ones do and all that. Since they are bound to do or know how to hunt and all that. Hunting. Just rabbits and birds and all that. So they know how to aim pretty well. But other than that, just not a lot of military discipline and all that. Many of them aren't frontiersmen, but people who come from the cities and all that, or towns, just some of them are merchant folk or shopkeepers and all that. Well, many of them are, farmers or woodsmen, or other types of
December 1776.
just your everyday people, basically.
Dearest Mother, we've been in this camp for nearly 5 months.
So what date?
December 1770.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yep. It's December now. Yeah, it makes sense that it would be December considering how much snow on the ground. Though, then again, it could be like November and all. Like, I mean, I know where I live, like, you know, you can get snow in November and all. I know, you know, many years this winter has started in November. Sometimes it snows in October too. You know, winter loves coming here early, and it hates to leave early. Indeed, there's still a bit of snow on the ground. Hopefully we don't get any more snow and all that. You know, hopefully from now on we only get rain and all that. And sky is cloudy. Yeah, if there's any precipitation, I hope it's more liquid than solid. Though then again, I should probably specify a bit more because, you know what I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't want any, you know, slushy snow and all that. You know, the wet snow is the worst kind of snow, you know, that, because, you know, it's much heavier and all that, real difficult to shovel. Yeah, snow in the spring, not my favorite. Okay, snow is best when it stays in winter where it belongs.
5. Henri stays out most of the day and comes in with a bag full of odds and ends he's collected from the battlefield. He insists there will be a big market for souvenirs of the great battle for Boston.
No, I mean, honestly, not a bad idea, no, that's... Yeah. And after I remember that I decided to, you know, save, like, a couple of, you know, the masks I had to wear during the pandemic and all that. Yeah, since they're not very good. Well, I mean, you know, it's possible that, like, in, like, 50 years from now, we might be able to sell them to a museum and all that. And just, so yeah. But then again, it's possible that there won't be that big of a demand and all that, since. But then again, you know, I mean, after all, as time passes, you know, it's the historical value increases and all that. Like, the older something is, the more it's worth. Funny enough. Yeah, of course, then again, I guess it depends exactly how old, because, you know, it's funny, like, when it comes to old things, okay, first you got the newest things, you know, it costs a good amount of money. Then, as it gets older, it starts to cost less and less money until it gets to a point where it's so old that it starts, you know, increasing in value. And then as it gets older, it starts increasing and increasing and increasing in value. It eventually becomes more valuable than when it was new and all that. Sometimes even 10 times. Of course, it also depends on the quality and all that. Quality is also important. Like, making sure something is in good condition is very important and all that. You should always make sure that something is in a good condition. Though that being said, I'm not exactly the best at keeping things in good condition, though. If we all hear about the Battle of Trenton here, I know that, because that's what I got here, you know, little thing about, about the Battle of Trenton, here. Let's see here.
Provinces of North America.
That's possible. It's just about the siege of Boston here. That's just going on here.
Men of New Hampshire, you signed on with this army for 6 months' service. That enlistment is now up, and you want to go home.
I cannot blame you for that, and I cannot stop you from going. I'm here to appeal to you to stay. 6 months ago, you and your neighbors stood on that hill, Bunker Hill, and heroically fought off a superior force. The enemy is still behind his barricades, and he is not leaving until we make him do so. He is not going home, but neither are many of your friends and neighbors. They died in that fight on the hill, defending their honor, defending an idea. That idea is freedom. Before you go, I ask you to think about the men you knew and loved who will forever man their post on that hill. And this is Colonel Henry Knox, Colonel of the Artillery.
Has he brought the cannons yet?
56 British cannons waiting for us at Fort Ticonderoga, captured this past May. Knox needs men to move those guns here, to Boston, to bear on the enemy. We need artillery to drive the British from this city. Who will go? The time is past when we think of ourselves as New Hampshire men or Virginians. We are Americans, and we have to stand as one. Are you with me?
Yes. Yes,
Colonel
sir.
Knox and the promise of his cannon seems to have convinced at least some of the men to stay. Now all they have to do is move them 500 miles over winter mountains. Somehow. Since I was there when the cannons were captured, I'm going back to see how he does it.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, that was the Green Mountain Boys episode and all that. The cannons. Yeah.
Go on to fit a visit with some of the new recruits in from Maine. Want to come along?
No, I've got an assignment of my own.
What's your assignment, Aria? Hopefully you're not doing anything you're not supposed to be doing.
I used to have a bookshop down in Boston. Here it is. Poor Richard's Almanac.
I see this is Knox, right?
Never failed to find something useful in these pages. Listen to this. If you would not be forgotten as soon as you're dead and rotten, either write things worth the reading or do things worth the writing.
Well then, Colonel, you do the doing and I'll do the writing.
Okay, so besides adding a bit of action and comedy, so that way the people watching this episode don't fall asleep, and also the reference to Yankee Doodle. What was the point of the scene here? In fact, what's the point of Henri's subplot? In fact, why is Henri even in this episode?
You say they plan this entertainment for Saturday night.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's why the Henri's whole subplot here is important. I see. So that you didn't just so this is how it's useful. Yeah, useful information here. Yeah. So I guess that's why Henri is useful. He's useful as being a spy and all that, a little informant. So yeah. So the commandos should be busy, watching a silly little show, which give Washington a chance to attack them and all that. A good.
And James's pigeons have all come here instead of flying to Philadelphia, and I can't get them to leave. James has been
so that's what happened.
With Colonel Knox for over a month now. I'm beginning to worry about them. More new recruits are coming in each day, and this army becomes stronger each day. What General Washington has done is nothing short of a miracle.
What is it? Those weren't there last night.
British leave Boston. Continental Army victorious in siege operation.
Hooray!
It's a great victory, Dr. Frank.
So this whole episode has just been about the siege of Boston. Well, at least it's accurate to how sieges are. Boring, and not too much happens until somebody just gives up. Sieges. Nobody likes them, yet they always end up happening. Truly, they are the best test of will. The best test of a person's will is a siege, and not a battle, because battles may be frightening and tough and bloody. But at least stuff happens, okay? With a siege, I mean, it's a test of your patience, okay? Just battles a test of your courage, but sieges is a test of your patience and all that. Like, so you may be brave enough to, go into danger, but are you patient enough to just sit around doing nothing for like months, if not years? Yeah. March 1776. So just a few months from now, the first 4th of July will happen. And let's see. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So I bet there's going to be 3 episodes in between then and there. So it appears that we're entering a more interesting part of the conflict. This ought to be good.
Franklin says we should come back to Philadelphia as soon as possible.
What will happen here?
We'll keep a garrison here, but the bulk of the army and new troops from the southern colonies will be gathering in New York.
How long do you think the war will last, Colonel Knox?
I don't know, Sarah, but we have to be ready for as long as it takes. The new flag.
Yeah, I remember. Seeing this. I remember this part right here. Quite memorable.
And a new army.
A worthy army. An army we can be proud of.
Yeah, specifically this image. This image right here, has been, just baked in. Well, maybe not exactly this image, like more so, seeing it at a angle and all that. I remember, where I was, sitting when I first saw this image right here. I guess that's all for now. Although, let's see how long is this? Not too long, Perhaps we'll learn about the siege of, Boston right now, instead of, having me just make a separate additional facts video. Instead, we're going to do the additional facts video here right now. After a quick break. Okay, first, we're going to look at a clip from Oversimplified. But I turned off the light in this room because I noticed the sun has come out, okay? It's slightly less cloudy now. I mean, there's still a bunch of clouds in the sky, but it's less cloudy. And then we got the sun. Okay, it's a bright new day outside. Yeah, quite nice. Very nice. Anyway, let's check things out here.
Flee back to Boston at the hands of local, poorly trained militiamen, and all along the British naval skirmishes continued around the city. And the British would suffer, now under British. When the British reached Boston, the rebel militias surrounded them. Boston and the British were now under siege as small land and naval skirmishes continued around the city. And the British would suffer another embarrassing blow, this time in upstate New York. Colonel Benedict Arnold concocted a plan to take the British stronghold.
Okay, right. So, yeah, we heard about that.
Nobody knew what was going on. The colonies were in open rebellion, and for now, they even seemed to be winning. So King George fired General Gage, replaced him with General William Howe, and ordered the rebellion to be put down immediately. Okay, the British are definitely going to retaliate for all of this, so we should probably put together a proper army. First, we need to pick a commander-in-chief, and I think we can... I am humbled and honored. Job should go to the man, the myth, the legend, George Washington. My friends, I am humbled and honored that you would consider me for such an important role. I did not expect for this. All right, you've been showing up in a military uniform every day for the last 10 months. We all know you wanted this, so cut the crap, George. Dude.
Uncool.
So Washington began his journey up to Boston to take command of the newly established Continental Army, just as the British made their first major attempt to break the siege. They made plans to take the high ground on Bunker Hill, but spies warned the Continentals of the British plans.
Alright, so yeah, we heard about this. Okay.
Small engagements continued to occur around the colonies. The British burned down the towns of Falmouth, Massachusetts, and Norfolk, Virginia. Engagements. Gross. So for the remainder of the year, small engagements continued to occur around the colonies. The British burned down the towns of Falmouth, Massachusetts, and Norfolk, Virginia.
Oh, that's interesting. You didn't hear about that happening in the show.
As revenge for earlier anti-British incidents. These actions played right into the hands of patriot propaganda. Overseas, the British were seen as brutes, and the French and Spanish would soon begin sending supplies to the rebel cause. During this time, there was also minor fighting going on between patriot and loyalist militias in the southern colonies. Benedict Arnold was still on a mission to win some personal glory for himself, so he headed up an attempt to invade Canada in a two-pronged attack.
Which did not succeed.
Continentals managed to capture some British forts and the city of Montreal, but a harsh snowstorm with some smallpox on the side saw them defeated and pushed back at Quebec City, and they were forced to retreat all the way to Fort Ticonderoga. Speaking of which, remember all those guns and ammunition? Well, this guy's got a plan for what to do with them. He uses oxen to drag 120,000 pounds of artillery for 2 months through the harsh winter, 300 miles all the way to Washington and his Continental Army surrounding Boston. Boom. Washington's got himself some big guns, which is fortunate.
Yep, so now we're going to hear more in detail about, what ended the siege of Boston here.
Because up until now his army had been suffering through the cold winter, not knowing when the siege would end. Now they could make a move. Washington wanted to launch a full assault on the city, but his junior officers felt the British were too fortified, and to his credit, Washington was great at hearing and taking on board the ideas of others. Instead, the Continentals worked through the night, setting the guns up on Dorchester Heights, overlooking the city, and when dawn...
It's the episode focused a bit more on that, and all that. I don't know. Would have been a lot more interesting to, to have more scenes where they, just set up the cannons and whatnot.
Dawn broke, and the British saw the guns. They knew they were toast. Their positions were completely exposed. It was checkmate. They had no choice but to abandon the city. 120 ships carried 9,000...
Just realized the whole thing about, just sitting down to see that play, I mean... I just really, wonder... Where was that actually input information? I mean, I wonder, did Henri actually to contribute anything? I'm beginning to wonder that.
Redcoats and 2,000 loyalists away to an unknown fate, and Washington had his first victory of the war. Washington then moved his army to New York, knowing that when the British returned, they would probably land there. In the meantime, a friendly-looking old man by the name of Thomas Paine had written and published a pamphlet.
Yep. And, that's going to, we're going to hear about that in, like a couple episodes from now. So, I'm ending that right there. Anyway, let's finish this video now.
That they are now fighting for Congress and the United Provinces of North America. By September, his new entrenchments are ready, and fresh gunpowder has arrived. Washington, energetic and keen to take the fight to the British, proposes an ambitious, amphibious assault through the south of Boston. And please. They're in July. Two weeks later, in July, the newly appointed commander of the Continental Army, General George Washington, arrives in Cambridge and begins to reorganize the free-spirited militia into a professional fighting force. The army he inherits is ill-disciplined, with poorly dug trench lines, low supplies, and dirty living quarters. They talk to their British opponents along outposts, and many come and go from the camp as they please. Washington quickly removes officers, holds court-martials, and lashes men that do not follow his orders.
That would have been a bit more interesting to see.
He tells his men that they are now fighting for Congress and the United Provinces of North America. By September, his new entrenchments are ready, and fresh gunpowder has arrived. Washington, energetic and keen to take the fight to the British, proposes an ambitious, amphibious assault through the south of Boston, rowing his men into the city. But his senior officers disagree as too high of a risk, and Washington yields to their judgment. Despite the bloody fighting at Bunker Hill, Congress is still divided. John Dickinson, an influential delegate from Pennsylvania, leads the majority in still seeking peace and reconciliation with Great Britain. In July, Congress sends a final petition to King George III, affirming their loyalty and asking for a lasting settlement that removes Parliament's undemocratic authority over the colonies. Congress hopes the petition will open negotiations, but by the time the letter arrives, the King, having heard of the events at both Lexington and Bunker Hill, has already signed the Proclamation of Rebellion and will not read the petition from Congress. The proclamation declares the colonies to be in a state of rebellion and orders officials from across the empire to suppress the traitors by force.
Stupid
Although many on
king.
both sides of the Atlantic still wish to avoid civil war, the proclamation has severely weakened the hand of delegates like John Dickinson and his Whig supporters in Parliament, and reconciliation seems more and more unobtainable.
So, like how you represented Parliament here with the Scarecrows, that with the Warhawks, represented by a hawk, and those who want peace, represented as with the olive brands, that nice, beautiful symbolism right here. I quite like this, and in the Scarecrows of Parliament, so the Scarecrows are currently in favor of the Warhawks and all that, instead of the bringers of peace.
Parliament, and reconciliation seems more and more unobtainable. Days after news of the battle reaches London, Gage is recalled to Britain in relative disgrace. There were already concerns about his ability to command, and Bunker Hill is the final straw. General William Howe replaces him as the British commander in North America. Aside from the high casualties, the Battle of Bunker Hill dramatically changes British calculations. Howe is deeply affected by the battle and has a new respect for the Continental Army. By winter, the Continental forces have shrunk due to enlistments ending and desertions, and the British, with fresh reinforcements, now have 10,000 men in Boston. Although Howe now outnumbers Washington for the first time in the campaign, he now does not want to risk an attack. General Howe has problems of his own. Poor morale is leading to desertion, as his men suffer through the winter with a lack of firewood, proper quartering, and fresh food that can only come in from the sea, and which is often captured by colonial privateers. Despite the perceived opportunity, the British command has become overly cautious, just as they gain the opportunity to go on the offensive. Washington is acutely aware that as winter drags on, his army will weaken. He proposes 2 further direct assaults on Boston, one in October and one in February, that would have seen Continental forces rush across the iced-over bay to attack the city. But again, his senior officers disagree, and the plans are scrapped. A stalemate now exists between the cautious General Howe and the restrained Washington. But in November,
the likelihood of, what's depicted in just into nothing of planning an attack, and as going through it, that didn't really happen or not, because the senior officers kept on saying no, we shouldn't do this and all that. So yeah, honestly, on Reed's role in the whole episode, it was completely superfluous, and he truly was just there for no reason. The whole scene with the play and all that was just pointless. It's just a lot of pointless scenes in today's episode.
Henry Knox, a 25-year-old bookseller with an interest in military history.
Yep.
Suggests a way.
So
A 25-year-old bookseller with an interest. But in November, Henry Knox, a 25-year-old.
Quite young. He's only 25. Huh? Wow. So she's like only about like a couple of years older than I am. Like I'm 23, and wow, that's impressive.
Bookseller with an interest in military history suggests a way to bring heavy cannon to the army and end the siege. Fort Ticonderoga. Washington dispatches Knox with orders to bring the heavy guns to Boston. But this is no easy feat, as the 59 cannons selected weigh over 60 tons. Knox builds sledges that will...
Yeah, Knox uses oxen. The oxes of Knox. Knox's oxes. Knox's ox.
Move the cannon through the deep snow and unforgiving countryside and transport the precious cargo 300 miles in what will become known as the Noble Train of Artillery.
I guess that was quite impressive and all that. Very good. And I definitely really did like the whole scene from that episode, with them, just carrying the cannons across the frozen, wilderness and all that. I thought it was very good. That was a good scene.
In March 1776, Washington places his new heavy artillery on the Dorchester Heights, a no-man's land up until that point, which finally threatens to bombard both the city and Royal Navy ships. General Howe recognizes the danger and plans to assault the heights, but a storm scatters his landing boats and makes an attack impossible. The British now have no choice but to evacuate the city. Over almost a year of fighting, the British have wasted precious time in Boston, fighting an unnecessary siege that they refuse to break. But a new strategy is now emerging in the British High Command, and with fresh reinforcements finally arriving from Europe, Howe is now poised to turn the tide in 1776 and finally go on the offensive. Thank you for watching our series on the American Revolution. Join us again soon for future videos, and if you'd like to...
Like I said, that was quite interesting. And should I end the episode now? And how about I'll just see the first couple minutes of this one.
Following the Battle of...
Let's go ahead and let's see here. Brits plan continental preparation, siege of Boston, next moves, and the unseen war. I don't have a lot of time here. Since I woke today, I have to go and work for a few hours in a bed here. So I don't know. And I'll watch as much as I can here.
Bunker Hill, the situation in Boston stalemated. The militia could neither storm Boston nor cut it off from resupply by sea, but British General William Howe couldn't break out either. The ferocious resistance on Bunker Hill made clear that he needed overwhelming numbers and significant amounts of artillery to break the militia, neither of which were available. With his overstretched supply lines struggling to keep the soldiers and civilians in Boston fed, sheltered, and warm as winter approached, Howe realized that his only choice was to wait for spring. However, the nascent Army of the United Colonies, commanded by General George Washington, had other ideas. The siege of Boston had to be won before spring. This video was sponsored by our kind YouTube members and patrons.
Okay. Oh. Wait. Yeah, okay. No. Alright. Skip.
Structuring his cabinet. October 1775.
What?
In October 1775,
yes, October.
Prime Minister Lord North began restructuring his cabinet for war. Most importantly, his longtime ally, George Germain, became Secretary of State for the American Department in November. Alongside First Lord of the Admiralty, Lord Sandwich, Germain was delegated
sorry. Like I know that it's that the old sandwich came before the food sandwich. That just, but I just wasn't expecting to hear the old sandwich, and it just, it's a dumb thing for me to laugh at, but yeah, sorry.
Alongside First Lord of the Admiralty, Lord Sandwich, Germain was delegated responsibility for fighting the war against the rebelling colonies. The strategy the three men decided upon relied upon three key assumptions. First, the Americans could not withstand a direct assault by the British military. Second, the war could be fought the same way as European wars. And third, victory would bring loyalty. The campaign...
Oh my god, these people are idiots. No. Gonna have to end the video very soon here. But yeah, good grief. These people are idiots. They are complete idiots here. Alright, okay, yeah. You're gonna have to end this in no more than 5 minutes. Okay, no more than 5 more minutes, and then video over.
Of 1776 would show them just how wrong they were. In of 1776 would show them just victory would bring loyalty. The campaign of 1776 would show them just how wrong they were. Supply problems were not unique to the British during fall and winter 1775, as Congress struggled to support Washington. Lacking taxation powers, it was forced to cajole its member legislatures to supply and pay the regiments based in their colonies themselves. Many legislatures were reluctant or unable to do so, resulting in chronic shortages of pay and supplies. Meanwhile, Washington's efforts to transform the disparate militia companies outside Boston into a unified, disciplined and European-style professional army were bearing some but insufficient fruit. Independently minded part-time soldiers don't readily take to military discipline, nor did their officers respect chain of command. Company size, equipment, command structure, and even fighting style varied wildly. Standardizing this chaos was a military necessity, but the former militiamen resisted so stridently that Washington was forced to negotiate and compromise with them about not only their equipment and structure, but if they'd train and drill. Fortunately, by March 1776, a combination of new willing recruits and a campaign of harsh discipline forged something which started to resemble an army. Congress had more...
a bit presumptuous with the new flag here. The stars didn't appear until much later.
More success at sea. While it would be impossible to challenge the Royal Navy's dominance, harassing and, more importantly, capturing British supply ships was critically important. Washington and the Rhode Island Assembly had already requisitioned a number of ships for this purpose. In October, Congress voted to create the Continental Navy.
Oh, that's quite interesting. Oh, so that's how the Navy is then. Neat.
Congress also readily issued letters of marque and reprisal to privateers, who eagerly attacked British shipping heading for Boston. To break the stalemate, in November, Washington dispatched Henry Knox to retrieve the heavy cannons captured at Fort Ticonderoga on December 17th. Arriving at Washington, cannons were desperately needed. Washington had particular plans for the 24-pounder siege cannons. The easiest way to drive Howe from Boston was effective fire control over the entire harbor and cutting Howe's supply line.
Yep.
However, Washington knew the British would contest any activity on the heights and didn't believe his 1775 army would hold. Even if they could, he didn't have the right cannons to threaten the harbor. Knox's arrival and a major shipment of powder in February fixed those problems. Howe was aware of the threat, which was why General Thomas Gage's planned breakout in June called for seizing the heights. However, Bunker Hill and subsequent probing raids made clear that taking the heights was too risky. However, Howe made plans to attack anyway, should the Continentals attempt to seize the heights. On the night of March 2nd, Washington ordered batteries stationed in Roxbury to open fire at British positions on the Boston Neck, which...
Oh, I see. No, that's interesting. Oh, did not realize that.
...drew return fire. Neither bombardment did appreciable damage, but British attention was drawn. The action was repeated on the third.
I wish that was focused a bit more on the episode here. Like, the more I learn about this, the more I realize just how poorly done that episode was. It was not a very good episode.
Then, as their batteries fired on March 4th, 2,500 troops under General John Thomas rushed the Dorchester Heights, carrying pre-made gun positions, fortifications, and siege cannons, using the bombardment and rows of hay bales to mask their movement and work. By
Neat.
4 a.m. on the 5th...
No, that's quite interesting. Anyway, I think I'll just end the video here. I know that if you want to learn more about it, you can check this out now. Just look for this video and all that. Just and learn some things on your own time. Anyway, I'm too busy at the moment. So yeah, end the video now. Hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, have a good day and goodbye.